My guest today is Amy Porter, the brain coach. Amy's story is one that not only is heartbreaking at times, but also inspiring, and just to understand that even when life doesn't go your way or when things happen, you can turn them into positives. The best way to describe this is that your limiting beliefs does not define who you are and who you can be. So definitely pay attention to what Amy says, listen to her story, and enjoy. The big thing I say is, like, you gotta win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsler podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the show. My guest today is Amy Porter. Amy is in the Inner Circle group. I'm in the Alliance group with Paul Mort. I think a lot of our guests are from the same industry. And Amy is on social media is the brain coach. And Amy, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So you have a very interesting background. Obviously, starting like the first kind of things I seen was with your son and the issues that he had, and then how you overcame them, and then the impact you're having with people in general and helping people be better. So, just can we get into how this all started coming about, that you are now inspiring and helping people?
Absolutely. So I've been surrounded by kind of neuroscientists, neurosurgeons, neurologists for like 19 years now. And it all started, my son's 19. And when he was 7 months old, with him being an only child, you kind of follow we used to have a little red book from the health visitor saying they should be sitting by this age and crawling by this age. And when he got to 7 months old, he wasn't sitting unaided or even attempting to crawl. And I noticed that he wasn't moving his right arm as much as he was moving his left arm. So we took him to the doctors. They said, right, go to the hospital straight away. They thought it was an issue with his arm. When we reached the hospital, the paediatrician did a reflex test on his knee, and on the right side, he didn't have a knee reflex. So at that point, they thought he'd had a stroke. So it was like, what? At 7 months old, like you expect like older people to have strokes. So that's the same day they gave him an MRI scan. And I can remember the nurse saying to me, it'll take about a week for the results to come through, and then we'll send them to your GP. But as soon as he came out the MRI scan, they said, oh, the consultant will see you now. So I knew they'd found something.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't expect what I was told. So he has a polycephalic cyst, which isn't actually a cyst. It's a hole in his brain that basically it covered 40% of his left hemisphere. And at that point, they said, right, he'll end up with cerebral palsy from like the brain damage, and we don't know whether he'll walk or talk. So it was like, wow, it was gone from that day thinking it was a problem with his arm to a stroke to then this polycephalic cyst. He also developed like sight problems with that and epilepsy, but he does walk and talk. But the epilepsy just throughout his life caused major problems. He'd be medicated and then he'd be all right for a couple of months. Then he'd have like 4 or 5 seizures in one day. Then they'd up it again and they'd introduce new medication. And when he reached 15 years old, it was like there was no more medication. Like he was on 15 tablets a day, like just they couldn't do anything else. So thankfully, Birmingham Children's Hospital took him in. They took him all off his meds for a week and to see where the problem was. And thankfully, they said, right, we can operate, but it means taking the last 10% of that half of the brain away. So he'll only have 50% of the brain. And
what age was he then? Was he 16? then?
He was 16 then, yeah. So that was 2021. This is when all COVID's still lingering around and everything. So it was a big decision. It was a major 10-hour brain operation. And at that age, you know, Ben, with his physical disabilities, it was the epilepsy that was causing him stress because, you know, he could control the physical aspect.
Yeah.
But we went ahead with the operation. Touch wood, we're 3 years in and he's had no seizures. But at the time, the surgeon said, right, he's going to be in hospital for about 6 weeks and it's going to take him about 12 months to walk again.
Yeah.
But he was discharged after 7 days because he started walking on day 3 after
Really?
the operation. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's you know, it was just through his mindset and his determination and the things he wanted to do. He's very into boxing and martial arts, and you know, the consultant said it was his pure mindset that pushed him forward that quick to be able to do the things that he's doing now. I mean, because on paper, mate, he shouldn't be doing half the stuff that he's doing now. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Well, I do genuinely believe that it's your outlook that will allow you to either overcome or hinder you in any regard in anything that you do, but especially after a very traumatic, the impactful surgery that was meant to kind of set him back so far. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think what triggered me into actually becoming a brain coach and going down the neuroscience ways, obviously I've been surrounded by that atmosphere for like so long. But mum, like 3 months after Ben was discharged, mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it was like, wow. So I've seen the brain do amazing things, but then I've seen like cognitive decline. And the more I looked into like cognitive decline, I'm like, holy shit. Like it literally ties down to like how you are thinking, your stress levels, how you're sleeping, your mindset, and everything kind of impacts cognitive decline. And I thought, wow. And with the Alzheimer's rates just shooting up, like massively shooting up, it's easy to see why people are suffering in that way. And I've met people with Alzheimer's that are my age, and I'm only 43.
And I think, did you put up like it starts kicking in at like 20?
So 20 years
early signs.
Before, 20 years before. So cognitive decline isn't like a light switch where your brain just suddenly goes, right, we're not working anymore.
Yeah.
Like the damage to the brain happens 20 years before your first symptom. So it's what we're doing now impacts how we're going to be when we're older.
That's nuts.
It is. And it's sad as well. It really is sad because we can do something about it now.
And I suppose like for like if it's happening on average to people in their like kind of late 50s, 60s, even so in your late 20s, 30s, the life that you're on, you're invincible, nothing's going to happen. That's when it's all starting to unfold slowly, like death by a thousand cuts kind of thing. Like trying to get that across, I suppose, is the bigger message. But then I was like, oh well, you want to live a good life, and it's like, yeah, living a good life doesn't mean destroying yourself at the same time. I think there's a very lost idea on like, oh yeah, you just go and destroy yourself in your 20s and early 30s, and then you come around later on and try and pull it back. And I think we could help create a generation of people that don't look at life the way we were kind of raised to look at it, as in like once you're able to go to a pub, that's pretty much your weekend set for you and all of that, and doing more adventurous things and being more active and making all of those like mindset and just doing things to help you be better. I think is the kind of approach that I know that you're trying to do. I'm definitely trying to do with our kids and teens. But obviously your mum has Alzheimer's, and then your son was recovering. How was that on you as just as a mum, as a daughter? Like obviously that's hitting hard.
Yeah. I mean, that I always say to people, I am so glad that Ben went through that operation, because it really has changed his life. You know, it's come off all the medication, so his confidence has grown. He's not slurring, so that it's been really good to see. Them 10 hours, wouldn't wish it on anybody. The worst 10 hours of my life, and I can remember like the first time seeing them after that, I was so grateful. Because one of the things that they didn't know is Ben's got memory problems because that area of the brain's not there. So he's got fantastic long-term memory, shocking short-term memory. And they weren't 100% sure if the short-term memory would be affected in the operation. So it was like, is he going to remember who I am when he wakes up? You know, little things like that. And I had one of these moments. So before the op, he'd said to me, can we keep the 10% of the brain in a jar? I was like, why? He'd already agreed to send it over to science for them to like have, but he kept saying, I want this jar just to say like, here's my brain. I was like, that's a bit weird. when he woke up, we had a bit of an issue waking him up because he'd had 10 hours of being asleep.
Yeah.
And there was a chance that he could have gone into like intensive care if they couldn't wake him up. But they took me into the theatre and said, Amy, can you try for us just so we can put him back on the ward? And I can remember standing over him, being horrified at the sight of all his head being bandaged up and everything. But I managed to wake him up for a brief second. And the first thing he said to me is, Mum, have you got my jar? And it was like that moment of pure relief that he remembered something. But I was in the mindset, I was so grateful. I've been that fearful of something going wrong, even though I knew it was in the best hands. But any surgery carries risks. And I was just that grateful to get him home. And in my head, it was like, right, just need to get Ben home, him back on his feet and him settled. When Mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was just like, here's another challenge for you, Amy. And it's really weird because the only way I can describe it, Ben's journey had like a happy ending where I couldn't get, my mum had started a journey where there was no happy ending. Yeah. So that was like a completely different ball game. And with me having no experience of Alzheimer's, I mean, we all know what Alzheimer's is, but I'd had no experience and I didn't really know what it meant. I just thought it was a memory problem. That's when the fear set in, when I started to realise actually what Alzheimer's is. And it created quite a lot of overwhelm for me. I'm not going to lie, you know, it was one thing over and here's your next challenge. So it was quite difficult.
Yeah. And with like obviously finding out more about what Alzheimer's is, like, did you see it as it like, okay, so, right, this is not the ideal situation. I really don't want to be here, but like, this is what I've been given. So, because a lot of people can just freeze and they can't function because it's too much for them. And so for you, and you said you were overwhelmed. You had that moment. What was it that kind of got you to go, right, this is what we got to do. Let's make a plan. Let's attack. Let's go.
Yeah. So we were, at the time, we were going, the Alzheimer's Society has like a memory cafe. And you basically go, Mum went, and you have to take like your primary carer with you. And it's once a month, and we've been going for a few months. And they're great there. Yeah. But one day I'd walked in and one of the Alzheimer's Society people said to me, Amy, are you all right? And at that point, I can remember just bursting out crying and going, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know. Like I literally feel well out of my depth here. I don't know how the hell I'm going to balance Ben's care with Mum. And there's just me. And it was getting used to me asking for help. It was at that point, it was just like, I can't do this. It was weird. It was like somebody had just pressed a switch and all these emotions come out. And like I say, the realization that I didn't have any experience, I didn't know the ins and outs. I was just I kind of slapped with all these like symptoms of Alzheimer's, and it's the point where my mum, how she wasn't the person that she is now. So it's like a grief process, like you've already lost them but they're still here.
Yeah.
So I work quite a lot on that.
And I know this happened to a couple that, like, I know they lost their son to cancer, but during the time when he was going through remission, and like he got it, he lost it, and he got it. It was hard. It was just one of them. And the doctor that was looking after him says, "Listen, what happened when he finally passed? It was, look, you're going to get really sick now because your body has not allowed you to be sick for like I think 5-6 years. They because of autopilot, like it was just like constant. We can't allow ourselves to fall short because of what we're doing." When you burst into that, like, emotions, it just all came to you. Did you find that releasing that then allowed your body to kind of reset itself? And did you end up kind of feeling down more before you came back up? Or how was that roller coaster for you? Because I'm sure it's not, you can't, like you say, you can't just switch it on, okay, I'm going, and then switch it off and then feel what you need to feel.
Yeah, for that moment, I was quite shocked because one, I'd done it in public, like in front of all these people. But somebody else asked me on a podcast, and I look back now and I'm really grateful I had that moment of just like it. I looked like insane, like to everybody, but everybody there understood. And what I realised is I still have moments now of overwhelm, and I recognise now it's more when I've been overwhelmed or I've not slept very well or I've not had time out for myself.
Yes.
It's like a trigger and then I can't cope. So it was a realisation at that point when I had that meltdown in the middle of Alzheimer's Society that actually I'd just been that full on, that physically and emotionally it was bound to happen. And moving forward, if I'm overwhelmed, if I'm feeling, that I can't manage, it's because I've not looked after myself.
Yeah. And I think it was oh God, what's his name? He was at the talk on Alliance. He helps all the disability kids.
Oh, Dorino.
Yeah. His whole thing, I can't believe I went on my like, but his like, you got to give yourself 200 so you can give 100% back. And I've been saying this to clients for years when they come in and, oh, I've got kids and I've got work and I've got stress, but like, it's like, you're out of shape, you feel miserable, you're not happy in yourself, you're stressed, you don't sleep. I said, if you don't start taking care of yourself, how are you supposed to look after other people? And what will happen is you'll become the person that it needs to be. Like, you'll need the people that you're looking after to start looking after you, and you don't want that. So you have to start taking care of yourself. So taking care of yourself for you, what does that look like?
So for me, massively, like it's like anybody, if you've had a crap night's sleep, you're not dealing with like little problems, let alone big ones. So for me, sleep is key. And do you know what? It's like, even if I've got 10 minutes, if I've got a hectic day where I'm looking after mum and she's got hospital appointments, if I can just get 10 minutes a day, whether that's meditation, whether it's me sat with a coffee outside, that matters to me. Like, it doesn't need to be like this big holiday. I think that's what a lot of people think, or I don't have to wait till the weekend. Like, I can do something for myself now. But things like making sure I exercise, like, if I miss a few days of not going to the gym, I will automatically start feeling a bit more negative and feeling like too much.
Well, it helps. Like, we know, like, exercise helps regulate your hormones, and even like my wife would be like, "You need to go for a run or a walk or to the gym." Like, if it's been a few days, because she goes, "You're wound up." And you need to release that because you have so much going on. And I like you say, getting the 10 minutes a day. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't have the time. You have to create that time. And this whole, like, I love a good morning routine as much as the next person, but it doesn't have to be that hour long of 10 minutes of meditation with 10 minutes of reading a positive book with mobility and doing all that stuff. It's like, if you, and I always say this to people, the easiest one is stick on some music that you really like for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And just bounce around the house before everyone gets up. You're going to feel happy. You're going to be moving. Your body's moving. You're getting like basic exercise. I said, you're going to set yourself up for the day ahead. So when your family comes downstairs, you have to go to work and meet people, you are already switched on. And like I say, 10 minutes is all that you need to do. And, people say they don't have the time. Everyone, if you don't have the time to create 10 minutes in your life, you need to create those 10 minutes in your life. And everyone has that. I think it's a cop-out answer that I'm too busy, because like you say, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't long-term take care of the people that need you the most. And obviously your son, and he's doing well now. I think he boxes and everything now.
Yeah.
And then, like, obviously with your mum, like, that's an awful lot. But then on top of all of that, you also studied neuroscience.
Yes. Yeah.
Being coach. You have a podcast. So if people don't have the time, where did you find all this time?
I recognise very quickly. It's like, like when you say to people, you need to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Like people, and even I fell into that. It's like you get this like fear of dread. It's like, can't possibly do that. I haven't got time. Like people's biggest thing is, I haven't got time.
Yeah.
I fell into that category when I walked into that room and had that meltdown, that I haven't got time. It's the biggest thing with people, where we've all got the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to make an effort. Like we've said, 10 minutes a day. You're right. Everybody can afford 10 minutes a day, but I can recognize now that 10 minutes is probably going to save me a load of burnout. It's going to save me a load of emotions that I don't necessarily want to have. But it's about, for me, when I work with people and I'm kind of, if somebody comes to me and says, well, I haven't got time for that, I know straight away they're in an overwhelmed state.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. Like, I'll always say to people, just go and sit outside and have 5 minutes coffee and everything like that. I've learned the hard way that overwhelm and that I haven't got time excuse will cost you a lot more in the future, health-wise and mindset-wise, if you don't just have 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people, I think we're in a world full of people that are overwhelmed. The world's very busy right now.
Well, I think we don't have any disconnection time. It's constant input, and then most people's time is spent scrolling, and that's just information overload after information load. And a friend of mine years ago, he said this to me. He goes, "There's no all stress is the same, and then you're constantly in a state of stress." So everything that you do in your life, he goes, there's stress of the day, but then there's all the kind of, if you think of it like a river, underneath you, there's a constant stream of stress. That is the wages going through, you have to pick your kids up from school. You have to make sure that the food is ready, the shopping's done, the washing's done. You're booking a holiday. You have to meet a friend this weekend, but you're not sure if you want to do that. I goes, it's a stream of stress constantly, and then on every day there's an actual kind of meander of stress that you focus on. And he goes, it's always there, and if you don't start taking that time to detach your brain from literally everything that's blasting it, you'll actually end up sick. That was the thing, is like, you're going to end up sick if you're not looking after yourself properly, which most people do end up sick. And then they're in their, like, I see it all the time. Like, people come to our gym in their late 30s, 40s and 50s going, oh, I now need to do it. It's not I want to do it. I need to do it because things are just going from bad to worse. But like, when you So again, sorry, like back to the question, like how did you then start becoming the brain coach and all of that? Like what was
yeah.
it that got you into it? Obviously we know what got you into it, but like how did it start?
How did it start? So I can remember, so I'm guessing they run these nationally, but they run these living well programs that are set up by the NHS, and it's like they sell it as bring the person with Alzheimer's and we're going to show you how somebody with Alzheimer's can live well. It was a 6-week course at that point, but when we got there, it was actually designed more for the carers to go, right, you need to change this in your life and you need to change this in your life. And that's when I realised, I would say to people, it's like everybody is very capable of getting Alzheimer's and cognitive decline, but it's like a gun, but it's your environment that pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God. So I was just researching things online, and then I thought, you know what, I want to get qualified in this because I find it absolutely fascinating. And you know what, it's like stress is a big one for people. It's the number one enemy of the brain. And the more I started to learn and like work towards the qualification, it was like this, we can change simple things in our lives that have dramatic results, not just for yourself now, but like for 20 years down the line. And I just had this burning passion to learn about it. It's like absolutely, neuroscience, absolutely fascinating. It's growing that quick. There's millions of pounds being ploughed into it. And I love the fact that I can take a complicated subject, neuroscience, break it down and put it in simple terms, which everybody can follow, and simple things that everybody can implement in their daily lives.
And with that, as you said, like you're taking something very complicated, you're breaking it down. How do you get that across to then people that you're talking to on a daily that just have no kind of concept of that what we do now will give us the gratification on the lifestyle later? Like it's because like we would see that in the gym all the time. This isn't a 6-week program to get you shredded, because if we can do it in 6 weeks, in 12 weeks you're back to square one. This is a lifestyle choice. It's you need to exercise pretty much most days for the rest of your life to maintain physical, mental health. It's not a gimmick. It's not 3 months and I'll go back to my lifestyle. This is a long-term thing. So how do you kind of communicate that towards people that you're talking to?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the same way. So obviously I'm doing it from a brain health, and let's be honest, everybody looks for instant gratification right now. So I'll be saying to you, right, if you change your life now, 20 years down the line, you're going to thank yourself for it. People don't think like that.
Yeah.
So I always say to people, I can guarantee that if you change your lifestyle now, yes, your future self will love you for it, but I can guarantee like what I'm going to be teaching you, you'll feel better like within 2 weeks. It just needs consistency. People do struggle with consistency. But when I start talking about the brain to people always look at me gone out when I say to them, we are modern day cavemen and women without a shadow of a doubt, right? Our brains have not changed since then. They are exactly the same. Yet we live in a world where everything is fast paced. We've got social media. We don't have to go shopping anymore. Like we order things on Amazon, like click of a button. We don't look at maps anymore. Like we use sat navs. We don't have to think about remembering somebody's phone number. It's all saved on our phone. And when they're sitting there going, yeah, I was like, so you expect your brain to be all right in a modern world where we're not built for that?
Yeah.
And it's like I help people with sleep, because it's like people aren't sleeping at the minute. We need to sleep for brain health. So it's like if I can get you to sleep better now, I can get you to have less stress levels now. You will feel better now, and your future self will. So it's a bit like you have to do little things. Now, people worry that I'm going to go and tell them to do these massive life-changing things, when reality is, because we haven't changed our brains from evolution, it's actually really simple things that are that simple. People will get confused by it and overthink it.
Yeah. I get that a lot when it comes to like nutrition, all that. It kind of, but I wholeheartedly agree. It's making small changes. I was talking on the radio yesterday, and we're asking about the 10,000 steps and all that. And I was like, listen, I said, you don't have to worry, because if you do 10,000 steps and you don't do your 10,000 steps, you're going to give out. You're going to be upset with yourself because you didn't do what you said you would. I said, but most teenagers now, based off getting up, going to school, coming home, sitting on the couch or sitting at a study table, are walking about 2,000 steps a day. So stop the 10,000. Let's go for 5. Walk just 10 minutes and stop counting it. Just it's small, subtle changes that will, and like you say, it's too easy. I need to make it more taxing on my system or challenging, and then you end up failing and then going, what's the point in this? And I think like you said, like a lot of people try to find that really quickly, and you're just like, no, just let's be simple. Like, we had a guy who was like, he travels, he's on the road all the time, and he can't get control of his diet. And I was like, and he almost left the gym. He came in to leave the gym, and I was like, but you're focusing on the thing you can't control. It's too stressful for you to control. How about make sure you have a good breakfast every morning, and make sure you don't eat any food after 7:30 at night for the next 14 days. Text me every single day for 14 days. He felt better. He started sleeping better, and he dropped the weight. And he goes, that's amazing. I said, yeah. And when you're able to get when you're ready to tackle the during the day stuff, when you're stressed out from work and you're at the garage and you buy the chocolate bar and the energy drink, then we'll attack that. But until then, focus on what we can control, because you can't control your day at work at the moment.
Yeah.
And like, that's so simple. I said, yeah, and just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you go away, enjoy yourself. Go on holidays, enjoy yourself. When you're in your routine, make the changes that are possible to make, not these like eat like a saint for 75 days and then you're winning. I was like, yeah, that's a good challenge, but it's not sustainable.
It's that all or nothing mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. And like what you're saying with brain health. So what would be kind of, obviously after sleep, which is important, but like, I'm gonna, like, my thing was, for the first 3 years of my son's life, he didn't sleep, and then we had a 1.5 year gap, and then our daughter came along and she doesn't sleep. So we weren't get like up twice a night, easy, effortless, for the last 3 years. Only recently we're starting to get it. So for people that they can't get the quality sleep, they can't get the 7 to 9 hours because they've kids and all that, and then that's the excuse. So then I can do whatever I want. What would be the next step? Or what would be the next piece of advice you'd give someone to try and manage their stress in their day in regards?
Right, okay. So stress. So I majorly talk about sleep and stress. They're the two main things. So yeah, it's sometimes, we are in periods of our life where sleep is affected. So we can still help with our stress levels there. I mean, like you were saying, like the constant stress, I completely agree with that. Like, people just are running with so much cortisol in their bloodstream. But I always say to people, like, 20 minutes of acute stress and high levels of cortisol will start killing brain cells in your hippocampus, which is the memory center of your brain. And stress is so addictive, and you can see it everywhere at the minute. Like, everybody is stressed out. It's like how society is. We are I've got mirror neurons as well that kind of copy other people, so it's easier to become stressed out as well. And like I say, it's simple things that can change, like, your stress levels. So exercising is one of them, like sweating, like cortisol comes out of our skin, like we can sweat it out. It's things like you said, listening to music, if it's a song that makes you feel happy, or it's got a bit of nostalgia to it that makes you feel good, we start releasing oxytocin, which is cortisol's biggest enemy, is oxytocin. What you said about kids just going to school and coming home and then they're on social media, being sociable with people that you like. So it doesn't work if you don't like them, but kind of spending time with people that you like. Again, that releases things like oxytocin and dopamine. We are supposed to be social people.
Yeah.
You know, back in evolution, we lived in tribes of 200 people. Like, we're not designed to be alone. So isolation is a big one for stress. It's things like watching comedy shows or laughing. You can't be laughing and stressed out at the same time. So stick something on Netflix that's funny.
Yeah.
Like little things. It's things like little things like, instead of taking the escalator, take the stairs. Right? That's using our cerebellum in our brain, which is movement, which again fights cortisol. It's tiny little things. Sleep obviously is a big thing, but if you are not sleeping right, like I talk about meditation, right? It took me years, right? Absolute years, because I was the person that was like, right, I can't meditate for an hour. My brain is drifting off everywhere. In reality, it only needs to be like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And if you're wanting to meditate where your brain switches off, it's not going to switch off, and neither do we want it to. Like, it just can't. So just 10 minutes of meditation a day massively helps as well. So on an MRI scan, that actually kicks your prefrontal cortex in, which actually goes offline if you are stressed. Like, it literally closes down. So that kicks the prefrontal cortex in. Things like journaling, it's not like Dear Diary stuff. It could be simple things like, how do I want to feel today? What's gone well for me today? A big thing I ask people to do is gratitude. Now, gratitude's one of those things that was a bit woo a few years ago. You'd see all the girly gratitude journals come out. But gratitude is shown as to be one of the brain's best friends. But I will say there's a bit of a trick to it, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, I'm grateful I've got a roof over my head. And it's very flippant, right? And you're not really thinking about it. So the people I work with, it's like, I get them to say, right, what have I been grateful for in the past? So this could have been yesterday, last week, 10 years ago, doesn't matter, as long as it's past, because that's accessing your hippocampus, which is your memory center. Then what are you grateful for today? That kicks in your prefrontal cortex, because you're having to make a decision about what's happened in the day. And then the strangest one is, what am I grateful for in the future?
Yeah.
Right. So this could be, people struggle with this, but if you think of, I'm grateful for the holiday I have next year. Now, you might not have even booked the holiday, but you are visualizing something happy, or visualizing meeting up with a group of friends for a coffee, because what that actually does is release dopamine. So dopamine's released in an anticipation. It's also a happy brain chemical. So doing that practice accesses different areas of your brain, and it's releasing different happy chemicals. Like, how simple is that? You know,
and it like as you say, it sounds so simple, but some people, a lot of people, they struggle to, like, we did this. We actually haven't done it this summer, but we did it last summer, every other summer with our teen camps. I sit down and we talk about it, and I said, when was the last time you told your mum or your dad? You just went up to them and said, thank you for everything, and give them a hug. And they're all like, especially the boys, like, and I've asked, and I always say, oh, this is what I'm going to do, is that I'm going to give you 24 hours to go and complete this task. And then I'm going to email your parents and ask, did you get a hug today? And like, some of them did it, and I got messages back from the parents. Some of them went up to their mums and went, coach said I have to give you a hug and say thanks. I was like, oh,
you're not getting it.
Well, they got what I asked them to do, but I think that's a really good thing, and to try and explain to people, because, like, I think especially because obviously the idea with a lot of kids and teens, they don't understand it as much, and they won't understand it as much until they're slightly older. But we do, like, over the next 14 days, I want you to pick 7 people that have been impactful in your life, and just say, hey, remember we did this, it was amazing, I just want to say thank you. and I'm glad that you're in my life, or that you were in my life. And some of them do it, some of them don't. But the people that do it feel amazing. But I did get one question back, was like, what if they don't respond? I said, it doesn't matter. The whole point is that you put it out there. They've seen it, or they've heard it, or you rang them, or you sent a letter or an email or text, whatever way it was. That is the important part. The response, whether you get one or not, is not. If you get a good response, that's amazing. But I do 30-day challenges. I've done them before, where I every day I pick someone and I send them a message or a video message or a voice message. I say thank you, and sometimes I get amazing responses. Sometimes the people that I would love a response from don't respond. But it's not about their response. It's about me being willing to do it and put it out there. And I think the gratitude, like you say, it is amazing. And firstly, you feel amazing for doing it. And if you do get a good response, you're going to feel even better. But I find that it's a very big challenge for people nowadays, because the fear of embarrassing yourself, or someone saying something negative, or just actually thanking someone for something. I think people are just struggling an awful lot to show gratitude, versus like what you said, I'm glad I have a job and a house over my head and all that type of thing.
Yeah, I think you say right. I think society has wired people that way as well, but interesting enough, it not only impacts you by sending an appreciation message, but that person as well will get like happy brain chemicals like the oxytocin, and so it's called like helper's high. And I think what I've found is, when I'm talking to people, if I just come out and said, right, to feel better, you need to go and tell somebody you appreciate them, or you need to think of like gratitude, then that's, to them, it's like theory, and that people will bin it off quite easily. Yeah. But if I come in with the neuroscience and say, well, actually, that brain chemical is being released, you're accessing that part of the brain, and this is what's happening, people take note a lot more. Yeah. But going back to, I think it is like a society thing, that we don't interact as much as we used to anyway. Everything is just very inward now. And I always say to people, like, even if you walk around the park in the morning, just say hello and smile at a stranger. You're getting those happy brain chemicals, and so will they as well. Like, just literally smile at a stranger and say good morning. And people feel really uncomfortable doing that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, big time. Odd. Like, that's supposed to be sociable. We're not. Yeah, no, because it's just that fear of, what if they don't respond? Like, and one of the things that I would do, and we get our son to do it. He's 8 years of age. Like, if we go for a meal, we get him to go up and pay. Yeah. And we get him to say thank you, because I've seen my niece would be one of them. She won't, like, she'd barely walk into a shop on her own and ask for something. She would prefer you to ask for her. And I've seen that with a lot of teenagers, that they don't want to do it. And I said, Jody doesn't want to do it either. But I say, here's the money, go up, tell her the table, pay, and say thank you. And now he's after the first few times super nervous. Now he's like, when do I go up and pay? And that confidence. And then they, like, obviously the person at the server thinks it's like nice that an 8-year-old boy is coming up and paying and saying thank you and all of that. And there, I think the lessons that parents can start instilling in kids at a very early age. But it's this whole, and it's not done deliberately, but we're going to overprotect our kids and try and do everything for them so they never feel any failure. Yeah. But the problem there is that we've just created really, really soft kids that can't handle anything in life. And then when something small happens, they melt down completely. And I think that that's where telling people that you're grateful for them, taking time to look after yourself, exercising, which is exercise is a stressor, but it's a good variation of stress. And then just kind of like doing things on a daily that puts you slightly outside your comfort zone will help you grow as a person and grow your confidence and your competence and your confidence in what we do in life. And I think that the physical side of things, like the body, is an easier
it's easier to get people to exercise. But the mental side of thing, I think, is a much tougher game because it's just so easy to switch it
Yeah.
and avoid it. Avoidance, I suppose, is the bigger thing.
Yeah, you know what you say, right? Because I work a lot with PT groups, helping them build healthy habits and things like that. And I'll always say to people, you know, if you've been to the gym and let's say that you've pulled a muscle in your back, you are very aware that you'll probably not need to go and pick that weight up again for a little bit. You need to let your back rest and repair and go back to it. Our brain sends us similar signals. So that will come out in like feeling like crap, feeling a bit emotional, feeling tired, drained, anxious, whatever it is. Your brain is trying to tell you that something needs to change, yet we ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing. It's like people need to be aware that even though your brain is an organ, it works like a muscle and it will tell you certain things and not to ignore it.
Well, that's I think as Chris Sheen, I had Chris Sheen on the show, and he said it, and I was one of those, you know, one of those moments you're kind of like, that's exactly how we need to look at it. And how I explain it to people now is like, if you want to become stronger, you pick up a weight, you do it 8 to 10 reps, and then when that gets easier, we make the weight heavier. And then we have to stress, we have to constantly put the muscle under stress to grow it, to make it physically stronger so it can handle everything. And we do that from the day we're born, how we stood up, how we walked, how we fell, all that, started running. And his thing is that the brain is the same. We have to put the reps in. If you want a stronger mindset, if you want to be more consistent, if you want to have better sleep, if you want to have better energy and better hormone regulation, you got to put the reps in. And most of us aren't putting the reps in at all. We're just, like you just said, it's like, we know there's something wrong, but we're going to continue doing what we're doing. So you want to live a much better life, but you're still fueling the life you don't want to have by doing the same things, which on a daily basis, like engaging with the wrong people, getting caught up in all the gossip, scrolling, staying up late, going to bed late, getting up super early, burning the candle at both ends, all of that. What would like that? I think that's a good way to look at it. But for you, when you're working with people, how do you kind of get them to click that it's needed for them, that they need to change with their mindset or with their brain?
I've noticed massively that people are just thinking they can't change, right? And I hear loads of people go, my brain doesn't work for me, like my brain isn't my best friend, and I hear horrible things, right? In reality, and what I'll say to them is we all have the same brain, apart from if you've only got half a brain, but technically we've all got the same brain parts, we've all got the same brain chemicals, and we wire it to what we want. Now the brain has no moral compass, none whatsoever. So let's pick social media for one, right? So we can sit on social media and let's say we've seen all the news that's been shared, and then you come off like an hour later and you feel flat and anxious and just bleh. Right now your brain is never going to turn around and go, Amy, you shouldn't be doing that because it's not going to speak like this, right? But we'll continue to do it. So our brain will go, Amy must like that, so we're just going to make sure we pick the phone up more. So whatever you repeat and repeat and repeat, your brain will think you like doing that. So we're going to make the neuro connections quicker. So
if you were to, it's your brain is your social media's algorithm. So that's how it's working, like the social media.
Yeah. So it's like you get this with anybody that's like overeating or any like addiction problems or anything like this. Your brain is not going to turn around and go, this is bad for us. It's got no moral compass whatsoever. It doesn't work. It doesn't know what's good or bad. It's taking the cue from you.
Yeah.
So like you have to be very careful what you repeat in. But the good news is with neuroplasticity, we can change that. we just have to be in the driving seat, and you have to take responsibility for this, because the brain won't change by itself. You've got to lead it into how you want to think, what habits you want, what routines do you want to have. Do you want healthy routines or do you want bad ones? Like, you really have got to take charge. And that's the thing. And when people realize that, like, you are letting your brain run on autopilot and you're wiring it to what you think is right, but it's not helping you in any way whatsoever.
But Amy, the problem is it's too hard for us. It's too hard. And I get this a lot when it comes to mainly nutrition, but like it happens with the fitness side of things as well. A lot of people want someone else to come in and fix it for me, and I don't have to do anything, because we live in that world where we're so used to getting everything done for us, but the real things that we need. So, like, obviously you've come up against people that is like, oh, I can't change, it's not me. How do you kind of switch their brain, I suppose? How do you flip that switch for them?
Right. Well, this is where I've got a bit of a pro, right? So Ben's brain has basically been able to wire itself in the highest form of neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't possible for the brain to change, he wouldn't be able to walk or use that one, because no side of the brain is there to kind of wire their muscles into work. So when people tell me that they can't change, I've seen neuroplasticity at its highest form.
Yeah.
So changing any behavior like your nutrition is easy, but you have to want it, and you need to have a big why. So I'll always say to people, you are making it harder than it actually is. I want you to go away, and let's say it's nutrition. What is your big why? Right? So 9 times out of 10, if they turn around and say, I want to lose 3 stone, but they've wanted to lose 3 stone for like 10 years, I know that why isn't the why that they need. You need to go and get a huge why. So it's to fit in clothes, to feel more confident, like make it emotional. And then you need to put actions into place, and they are tiny, like you said, tiny. And then your brain will start to build a new neuro pathway. Without that, the brain's a bit of a lazy shit, if I'm being honest.
Oh yeah.
It takes 20% of our energy per day, right?
But it wants to be lazy though, doesn't it? It's designed.
Yeah, it does want to be lazy.
Conserve energy in case.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like, it takes 20% energy per day. It's a small organ compared to the rest of us. It's only £3, right? But it is responsible for everything.
Yeah.
Like moving your limbs, how you think, your memories, like remembering a song from when you were like 2 years old. Like, it literally is in charge of everything. So it's not going to want to move unless you want to move and create a change. And, you know, this is how new habits start to form. Like you do when you start going to the gym, for instance. It's bloody hard at first because you're changing routine, you're having to make a bit of an effort. But as you carry on and be more consistency, it becomes easier, because then your pathways are forming, because the brain's going, oh my God, Amy's serious. She does want to go to the gym, so we better start putting things in place to do that. And that's the thing. That's why I say to people, you need to be in the driving seat, because if you want change, you need to change. You need to think differently. You need to think in a better way what you actually want your life to be like. And with the nutrition one, do you know what? It's probably one of the biggest things that people come to me with, and it is society. Like we can walk in a supermarket and we've got ding meals. Like, we don't have to think. Like, we don't have to think about recipes. Like, society is built for us to live unhealthily. So you do have to get out your comfort zone a little bit. You know, stop going for the easy option, because the easy option is going to cost you massively in the long run. Like with nutrition, like especially physically, but also your brain as well, because nutrition heavily tied into brain health. So it's getting people to realize that the only reason you are like you are now is because you've wired your brain this way. So you are in control, and let's wire it this way.
Yeah, I see all that is like, yes, that clearly makes sense. And obviously you work with people and I work with people, and you're trying to get that across on a daily basis to a lot of people. My kind of, because I know we're watching the time, and I have just one or two more questions, because I work with a lot of teens and kids, and we do talk about this. We have more outlets, more mental health professionals, more gyms, more diets, more everything for youths, and they're only getting worse. Their obesity rates getting bigger, their mental health's getting worse, they're suffering more. They spend on average 6 to 8 hours on their phone a day, which is nearly 3 months a year on their phone, which is absolutely crazy to think. What would be, for like anyone listening, a parent listening or a teenager listening, what would be kind of your top tips, maybe 1 or 2 tips for a teenager to try and start thinking differently about what they should do, or what action could they take?
Right, well, the first thing that I say is like peer groups. Like I really shout and scream about peer groups. Be very careful who you are putting yourself around, because you've got to think a lot of society will be, right, I'm going to complain about this, I'm going to eat this crap, I'm not going to exercise, because that's how society is. But recognizing you can be different, and recognizing there is also going to be other teenagers that don't want to go down that path. So finding people that you resonate with, huge, absolutely huge, because you will always feel like the odd one out. And this goes back to evolution again. If you feel like the odd one out back then, you didn't survive. So we will fit in and change to fit into another group.
Yeah.
So I always say, just be careful who you're around. That's not to say you need to go and cut everybody off by any means, but make sure you are spending time with people that inspire you, or on that, say you've got that same mission, that same drive to be the best person of yourself. Another thing I will say is, like, for younger people, mental resilience is absolutely key. And I think a lot of young people have more ambition, but they hold themselves back.
Yeah.
And because it's that thing of being different again and being out of your comfort zone. But I would massively kind of recommend parents and teenagers to work with somebody like you, where you can break their goals down into little chunks. Because let's be honest, you look at a big goal, it's very overwhelming. It's like climbing Mount Everest if you don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And actually sitting with people and going, okay, let's take it step by step by step by step. But yeah, they'd be my top 2 things, definitely.
Yeah, they're brilliant tips, and I think the parents need to kind of step in a little bit more. The peer group thing is huge, because kids will conform to the group just to fit in, even if they're the ones they're getting bullied in that group. They'll stay there because they're a part of a social group, and trying to educate them on that. I think it's kind of like it's not like new to us. We know what needs to happen. It's just we need to start kind of implementing it, and making it easier for kids and teens too. Because I believe there's a world where we can grow. Because people say, like, obviously that saying of good times create bad people create bad times create strong people create good times. I don't believe that we need to repeat that cycle again and again and again. I think we can give the kids the proper structure and discipline to be strong physically and mentally, and still enjoy the things in life by earned results, by leading a better life. And then we can create generations where we're not giving the stats on obesity. We're not giving the stats on teen suicide or depression, and all of those horrible things that they shouldn't really be going through, because of our current society. It allows it just to bombard them all the time. So yeah, no, like, thanks for those two tips. I think they're very, very important for people to understand and realize. So Amy, my last question for you is, what is next for you? What is the plan? What is the goal? What is the goal for you?
Well, quite a few. So I'm working with companies now to train employees about stress management, because as you're seeing with children's statistics, adult statistics are growing massively as well, and that filters down to the kids as well. So I work with companies to deal with stress management and sleep and things like that. I've also got my own programs where I work with people that just want to learn the mindset with the neuroscience so it makes more sense. So yeah, anybody can follow me on social media. If you just go onto Facebook and Amy Porter, follow me, send me a friend request, I can get more details to you. And also, like you, grow my podcast, which is Against All Odds. So I like to interview people, but it's really selfish, mate, why I set this podcast up. I'm not going to lie. I like talking to people that I find inspiring, that have had inspirational journeys. And then I sharing them with the world. So
I'm literally the same. I did a podcast years ago. It was more gym based, and I got bored of that. Then when I restarted this, it's kind of went through a few name changes, to be honest. But it's now it's simple. I'd like to talk to people that are trying to impact the world and have great stories, because I think that, and I say this to everyone that's on our show, is if one person gets the benefit of what you've said, firstly, I've already gotten a benefit because I got to listen to your story, and I've definitely taken some nuggets from it. And it's been an inspiring and impactful story. So it's already impacted one person. But like, if anyone listens, that's two people. And if I do 100 shows, that's at least 200 people. If I do that's 400 people. If I'm just going off the statistic of it's impacting me and one more person, like, the goal is to impact over 1 million people in any way that I can in a positive light. And if the podcast does that, and I get my own little kind of, because I like to sit and talk to people. My wife gives out about it all the time. It goes, you talk to anyone? I was like, yeah, I would. But if they have a good story, I'll talk to them forever. And that's the reason why I do it. So what we'll do is we'll put the show notes, not on the show notes, we'll put the links to your pages and stuff. And don't forget to give her a like and follow. And guys, like, literally, if you want to make your life better, or you have any questions for Amy, like, literally reach out and ask, because she has the knowledge and she's helping people, and you could be the one of the people that she helps, or you could be one of the people that she's inspiring to be better and lead a stronger life. So guys, thank you. Don't forget to like and share and follow and do all the good stuff to help me want to keep doing this podcast. And we are out and done for another show.
The big thing I say is, like, you got to win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsella Podcast.